Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Contemporary Issues Sunday School class. We are pleased today to have Abby Bennett with us to talk about national parks. So a topic I don't think we've ever done here before, but I know most of us are probably interested in. So it'll be fun today to see what it's like. What Abby will tell us about working in a couple national parks and the state of the national parks and what her organization does too. So let me do a couple of announcements first. Zoomers, nice to have you with us. Please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen when you're not speaking. And we are recording this for future playback on YouTube. And any other announcements? Christmas party we have on December 9th for our class here. So hope you'll put that on your schedule. And Frank and Maureen have a potluck on October 17th that they are inviting people to their house. So a little more information on that up here if you would like it, and join Frank and Maureen for that. Okay, other announcements? Or yes, and
Just a reminder, the prime time is on Friday at 11:30.
okay,
Yeah.
and then who's the entertainment this time?
The leading ladies.
The the Wild West. Western, okay.
Legendary lady.
Legendary Ladies of the West. That'll be good. Good.
11:30.
11:30 lunch on Friday here. Very good. Okay.
No.
Only $12 for a nice.
$12, Jim says, okay. All righty, with that, let me get going so we have plenty of time to talk with Abby. Let me introduce Abby a little bit more. Abby works for an organization called A Christian Ministry in National Parks, which equips people to serve in national parks by leading worship services and through relational ministry. Abby served for 2 seasons in Great Smoky Mountains and in the Grand Canyon National Parks. She now works with the organization as a recruiter and travels the U.S. recruiting college students for a summer ministry experience. She graduated from Florida Southern College with degrees in environmental studies, and political science, and she has served as social media director for a Methodist church in Florida. Is that your dad's Methodist church?
It is.
Her father is a pastor in Stuart, Florida, at a Methodist church there. So a fellow Methodist, glad to have Abby here. And she's just been here since April. We moved from Florida to here in April and says she loves it here. So what's not to love? Abby's passionate about the intersection of Christianity and environmental protection. So please welcome Abby, and she's going to have a little slideshow. And can we ask questions and comments during your slideshow?
Absolutely,
Great.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Abby.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here and share a little bit about my experience in the national parks, but also what's going on in the national parks just as a whole with some of the recent things we've seen this year. I'd like to start with my first slide with just a little introduction to the national parks. There's 5 national parks that have received the most tourists this year. And I guess before we start, if you guys have any guesses on what maybe the #1 most visited park is, right here.
Great
Smoky Mountains. Anyone have a guess for #2?
Yellowstone, Rocky.
It was where I also served. Grand Canyon. So I was actually at 2 of the most visited parks, and I could tell they were very busy. Any guesses for #3? It's actually Zion National Park,
Which is Utah.
which is in Utah. #4, any guesses?
Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yellowstone, which I know some of you said, and #5 is our very own Rocky Mountain National Park. So we did make it in the top 5.
Abby was telling me there are 60-some national parks.
Yes, I believe there are 61 national parks across the United States and even on some islands and other places as well, like the US Virgin Islands. Dry Tortugas, yes, in Florida. So my next question for you is, does anyone have any guesses on how many, before you go to the slide,
Okay.
how many? Oh, no, he just put it up.
Oh.
331 million people in the national parks in 2024.
Wow.
That is a record.
Really?
It continues to seen an increase, I believe, since 2020, maybe since before then. But that is a record number of visitors, which is really exciting because that means that people continue to treasure these places and make them a priority to visit. And lots of people from other countries also make it a priority to visit these spaces. So that's really cool to hear that people continue to visit year after year in greater quantity. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what's been going on the past year with our national parks and the government. And I know it can sometimes feel like we're being bombarded with lots of information, and it's hard to kind of get a feel for when things have happened and how things have affected things. So I put together a little timeline. This is just for 2025. A lot has happened this year with the national parks, so I want to kind of go over some of those things. And then we can have a little discussion about what's been happening. So in January through April of 2025, National Park Service employees were offered buyout incentives to retire early. Some of you may remember this happening. So to explain that a little more, National Park Service employees were offered the incentive to retire early and receive salary benefits for the next additional months. And the alternative to that was basically the government warning them that they weren't sure if they would have a job if they stayed because of some of those cutbacks. So as you can imagine, a lot of people did take that opportunity because stability is really important, especially if you own a home or you need to pay rent or all of those things. Did take that opportunity. Moving forward to May 2025, that's when the government released the budget plan, and that included, unfortunately, a cut of $1 billion to the National Park Service. And about 900 million of that was for operational costs. So the day-to-day happenings inside of a national park, a lot of that money was unfortunately cut. In July 2025, about 24% of the permanent National Park Service staff were lost. A lot of that was due to those buyouts that we just discussed. And I wanted to clarify the difference between temporary and permanent national park employees. So temporary employees, these are people who you can kind of think of them as contracted workers. They're brought into the national park specifically for the busy season. So they might be hired to be in Rocky Mountain National Park from May to August, which is the busy season. So a lot of times you have to start as a temporary employee for like a few years, and then you work your way up to being a permanent employee. So these were all permanent employees that were lost. And with permanent employees, these are people who have been working in the national parks for years and years for the most part. They're really passionate. They have a wealth of knowledge about the national parks and how we can protect them. So it really was a significant loss, losing that 24%. And that was 24% lost since January. So pretty significant. Moving forward to where we are right now in September, as we know, the government did unfortunately shut down. As of right now, the current statement is that parks are going to remain open to the public. I was just talking about the Colorado National Parks. Our governor has made a statement saying that as of right now, those are going to remain open. And moving into super currently in October, the priority services for the National Park Service, as the government is currently shut down, are entry. So these are people who are manning the booths, sanitation. So people who are making sure that the toilets are clean. And then safety. So search and rescue if people are injured on the trail or need assistance. So those are the services that are going to be prioritized as we're in this government shutdown, which is really good. Those are very important things. But there is a bit of controversy about whether keeping these parks open amid the shutdown is a good idea. On one side of things, you have people who say it is a good idea because parks are still able to earn some money from entrance fees. People are buying things that helps fund them because they're not receiving government money right now. But on the other side of things, a lot of people say that's not a good idea because there aren't enough employees to manage the park and make sure that it's protected, and also make sure that the people who are visiting are also protected. So we'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide, what some of the impacts are going to be. But
cursor, there it is. Yeah.
So we just went over a lot of things that have happened this year, and I'm sure you're all wondering, well, how is this gonna impact the parks? What's this gonna look like? And before I talk about this, and before I move forward, I just want to say that I'm here not as a representative of a Christian ministry in the national parks, but just as someone who has knowledge of parks, has lived and served in them. So anything I say here is not like an official statement from our organization. This is just research that I've done on my own and things that we've kind of seen as a trend. And overall, before I get into this information, over the summer, before we had the government shutdown, but we still had lost a lot of employees, it wasn't super noticeable in the large parks. So in those top 5, resources were prioritized to go to them because they're the ones experiencing the most tourism. They're the ones with the largest amounts of people, the largest amounts of employees. So if you visited a major national park this summer, you might not have noticed a whole lot of changes. Internally, however, lots of things have been going on. Our organization works really closely with the National Park Service, and we would hear things about superintendents stepping down who had been in the Park Service for a super long time. We heard things about people doing the jobs of 5 other people because those people either took the retirement package early or just left the National Park Service. So a lot of stress going on internally, you can imagine. If you've lost some of your coworkers and dear friends, like due to this government shutdown, that can be really impactful in a negative way. So that's kind of what we've noticed on our end. Mostly the large national parks aren't as affected, but smaller parks with less tourism have been more heavily affected. So overall, going to my slide, one of the major things that gets cut when there's a lack of funding are interpretive services. So there's 2 types of park rangers. There's law enforcement park rangers and there's interpretive park rangers. So law enforcement park rangers, as you can expect, they're enforcing things like speeding. They're making sure that people are safe. They might be involved in search and rescue, making sure that vandalism isn't happening. Interpretive park rangers are the ones that you're typically going to see in the visitor centers. They're running things like educational programming for visitors. So this would be like a ranger talk. Maybe they're talking about the night sky or the cultural significance of an area. So things that are really important for education. Interpretive rangers are also developing programs like the Junior Ranger program, which is deeply loved and is a really great way to get the younger generation involved and feel like they're a part of maintaining the national parks because they will be as they grow up. And like I said, they're at the visitor centers, so they're advising people on what hikes to do based on their skill level. If they have small children, maybe telling them to not go on the extremely long and strenuous hike. So there is a level of safety there. They're advising people to bring enough water, make sure they have enough resources. So when we don't have them at visitor centers, people aren't as well versed in what trails they should do, and that can lead to some safety concerns. Because of the government shutdown, around 2/3 of NPS staff don't know when they're next getting paid. A lot of them will continue to work, and in the past, once the government has reopened, they've been paid for all of the work that they've done. But that's just a precedent. That's not required by law, unfortunately. So obviously we hope that when the government does reopen, and hopefully it happens soon, they get paid, but they don't know when that's going to be. And as you can imagine, when you have bills to pay and a mortgage and rent and have to take care of children, that's a really scary and stressful thing, and that can take a really big toll. As I mentioned, the parks, as of right now, are going to remain partially open. Many visitors and other amenities will be shut down because they just don't have the staff, and those are the first things to go when there is a government shutdown or lack of funding. And in the past, when the government's been shut down, some of the issues that we've seen in national parks are sanitation issues, vandalism, trash everywhere, stolen artifacts, and damaged cultural sites. So these are some of the things that can happen when we don't have enough staff in the parks, but they remain open. So before we move on, I guess I'd like to hear, sorry.
That's all right.
I'd love to hear if you guys have any questions or comments about that. I know we just went over a lot of information. I'm by no means an expert, but I can try my best. Yes.
Just a little anecdote. I have twin daughters and we used to do a lot of hiking and the Fairmont National Parks. Well, I realized pretty quickly, and they were kind of like toddlers. This is when they were 3 or 4. And then they could easily go with us. but those short little legs, we would go out and, I said to my wife, I said, we're only going as far as I can carry them back.
There you
Those
go.
little guys, one of my daughters said, twice as long as you." So I had two girls and, they were, I don't know, 45 pounds or something each. And, and they often took me up on that, and so I had both of them, and I've done this in airports, going up and down, but. I can do it for a while and feel like and then I give out, and so. When I was with them by myself on a hike, I would sometimes take them and then put them, and I'm gonna take one of you up here, and I could see both of you. So that type of service, like you're saying, if people with children is really, the interpretive one is really helpful a lot.
For sure.
I was just going to say that, we were in Moab in July and we had our 6-year-old great granddaughter with us. And she was so proud to get her junior badge.
Yeah.
And they don't make it easy. You
No.
don't just walk in and get it.
Mhm.
You have to fill out a form and answer
Yeah.
questions. And
Mhm.
so she really enjoyed that and very proud of her badge.
Yeah, I was a junior ranger too. Frank, would you pass the microphone forward, please?
Sure. I think they do it both.
Give us a hand
For that junior
Thank you.
rangers.
Yeah, I'll speak loud enough to be heard, but
Go ahead,
I have a
Keith.
question. When I listened to you make your opening comments about national parks, how does that equate to, or is it the same as the National Forest Service?
No, it's not.
I know it's not the same organization. But how does it relate? How do the issues relate to the National Forest Service? Have they had the same mandatory cutbacks and things like that?
So I know because they are a government organization, they have been facing similar things to the national parks, and a lot of them are right next to national parks. So you'll have a national park and then a national forest right outside of it, so less heavily touristed, but still affected for sure.
Go ahead, Ann.
Yes, I'm totally aware the issues you're talking about because I subscribe to their monthly magazine.
Close.
Thank you. I just offer a suggestion. I've had a subscription for my 3 grandsons who are now in their 20s for Christmas every year to help them be interested in the parks and also be a contributor financially.
Mhm.
But with Christmas coming up pretty soon, it might be something that parents might be interested in getting the kids involved from a pictorial and, they only cover 2 or 3 particular parks in the subscription,
What
But-
magazine are you talking about? Ann?
the national parks.
It's called a National Parks Magazine? Okay,
It's a terrific magazine, but it's also supporting the park, and they are, as you're confirming, in financial trouble, big time right now.
Ann, pass the microphone back to Jim, please. Thank you.
I'm curious if anyone has done any studies about how much revenue the national parks generate for the economy. I know the expenses of the national parks show up as a cost on the budget, on the federal budget. But my understanding is that the national parks generate multiples of that in revenue for the economy. And I've never seen any argument to counteract some of the cuts.
Yeah, I don't have specific numbers on that, but I know for local economies, especially tourism in the national parks, because you have the National Park Service, but then you also have the private tourism companies that either operate within the park or they operate in the gateway communities. And they're heavily benefiting because a lot of people don't stay in the national park when they visit. They stay in the gateway community, spend money, spend tourism dollars. So I know when the government does shut down in situations like this, a lot of those local economies are pretty negatively affected.
Yeah.
We were in Utah and our 5-year-old daughter
Microphone's coming for you.
Jane says she already told them. I thought I was paying attention.
That's okay, Jim. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to ask too, I know that you talked about the Forest Service, but I also was concerned about the national monuments. Because I know when we tried to use, this was years ago, tried to use our golden Eagle Pass. And of course, that doesn't contribute any more money, but we use it all the time. I was just wondering, you can't use it in the national monuments. We found that out when we first got that pass. But I just wondered how, as was mentioned earlier, the connection at all. It has the same rules and regulations that you just mentioned, because they're government agencies, and so they are. How do they, or do they all work with parks, the monuments, the Forest Service?
What's an example of the monument? Rushmore?
Well, Colorado Monument, we have.
Devil's Tower.
Devil's
Yeah.
Tower, okay,
Monument.
but it's not a national park,
No.
but it's a monument.
Yeah, there's no park
That's what
around
trees
it or
used to be.
anything. It's just.
Okay.
Yeah, so
for some-
because it is run by the government, still being affected, I don't have research on to what degree. I know just in general, national monuments again get less tourists than national parks, but they still need to be run and they still need to be protected. So unfortunately, they've been affected. I'm not sure to what degree.
You wanna hand it to her?
I hope I'm not stealing your thunder. but
No, go for it.
I did a Christian ministry in the national parks back in 1986 at Signal Mountain Lodge in the Tetons. And the way it worked was during the week, I worked in the mini mart at Signal Mountain Lodge, Monday through Friday. And then I went around the campground at Signal Mountain and told people about it was the next morning. And then I conducted the services. I had someone that did the music, played guitar. And that was back in '86, but it was funny because one of the rangers with interpretive services in the Tetons, he would tell us jokes once in a while. Those of us who were involved in this ministry, he would tell us little jokes about things that tourists would ask. Like they would say, how deep is the Jackson Lake at the shallowest point? Or they'd come into the mini mart and open up their map and they'd look at the trail to the top of the Grand Teton. They said, can you drive up to the top? Well, he would tell all these stories. And we had nicknames for those people. They called them Tourons.
Oh. Yeah. Okay,
On that note.
yeah.
Some of you have already touched on this, but I'd like to talk about some ways that we can help as individuals. I know a lot of times with these issues, it can kind of feel like we can't do anything to help. So I just wanted to touch on a few things that we can do. I know Anne mentioned, supporting through like subscribing to magazines, things like that. A lot of national parks have partner nonprofits. So for example, in the Smoky Mountains, there's a nonprofit called Friends of the Smokies. They do a lot of fundraising. They sell things to try to raise money for the Smoky Mountains. So that's kind of a supplement to the government funding that they get. So again, as you're purchasing Christmas presents or birthday gifts, there's a lot of cool things that they sell and those profits support the national parks. You can also call your elected officials. I feel like this is something that we get told a lot with all sorts of different issues, but your officials are supposed to be representing you and the people around you. So it's really important to let them know that this is a priority and this is something that we want to continue to see supported. Something that's not super often done, but is super powerful is writing encouraging letters to park rangers. Maybe you have a trip to a national park planned, and before you go, you write some letters to park rangers to hand out to them as you're traveling around the park. Just, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing, or maybe just telling them that. It can sometimes be a really thankless job. They're just kind of assumed that they're going to be there, and they don't get thanked a whole lot. So when someone goes out of the way to say, hey, we really appreciate what you're doing here, like you're doing a really good job, that can do a lot to lift morale. On another level, you could also do a service project with the National Park Service. Our ministry does a lot of these, so maybe you're picking up trash, you have an extra day on your trip and you help clean the visitor center. There's lots of different things you can do. And when they don't have as many workers as of right now, they need extra volunteers to step in and help out, so.
Rocky Mountain National Park has a conservancy group that we belong to,
Mhm,
yeah.
Exactly. There's usually partner organizations that you can volunteer with. I know this is a heavy topic and a lot of us really care about the national parks. So I wanted to end this section on a lighter note. That's actually really encouraging. So the Data for Progress Center, this is a polling group, found that there's actually strong bipartisan majorities of likely voters who hold favorable views of the National Park Service as well as the Forest Service. In this day and age, there's not a lot of things that our country can agree on, but this looks like it's one of them, and that should give you hope. That should be exciting. We can all, a majority of us across political party lines, agree that the national parks are really important, and that they need to be a priority. So that's an exciting suggestion.
Absolutely.
So I want to kind of transition into my personal experiences with the ministry. In the introduction, it was kind of explained, but I'll just give you a brief explanation of what we do. So we send teams of people into the national parks. We help them get jobs with the concessionaires. So these are the private tourism companies that have contracts with the National Park Service. They're the groups who are running the restaurants, the hotels, retail, anything related to hospitality. So our team members work in those positions, and then in their free time, they minister to their coworkers through relational ministry. And they also lead weekly worship services in the national parks. Those are open to anyone. We are an interdenominational ministry, so Christians from all backgrounds are on our teams. And it's a really unique opportunity to kind of combine a love of the outdoors with ministry and loving the people who are in these parks. Because these parks can be dark spaces. A lot of times park communities are secluded. There's some community aspects that aren't the healthiest. A lot of people are running from something when they go to work in a national park. So our teams go in and we try to meet these people where they are, love them as Jesus would, and create more positive opportunities for community. So the picture on the right is me with my, or I guess it's your left, me with my ministry team in the Smoky Mountains. We actually all worked right outside of the Smoky Mountains in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. This is a really big touristy area if you've ever been.
Yeah.
Lots of jobs. So the picture on the left was my job. I was actually a zipline guide right outside the Smoky Mountains.
Cool.
That's fun.
It was very fun. We would lead groups of tourists through the zipline course. There was a rappel that they'd have to jump off, and lots of coaching people through nervousness with that job. I really enjoyed it. I still can't believe that I did that. But a lot of what I did, you know, obviously was zipline work, but a lot of my coworkers needed Christ. They were rough around the edges. They had maybe been hurt by the church or just hadn't had great experiences with the church. So a lot of what this ministry does is loves on people who haven't been loved by the church and don't know Jesus's love, and make them feel comfortable enough to talk about maybe some of their experiences with religion or ask us questions about our own faith. So it's a really powerful experience, and you get to meet a lot of people that you wouldn't normally meet. You can go to the next slide. Yeah.
A question about the Sunday services that you do. Were they outside in amphitheaters or in a
Typically.
chapel?
Outside.
And were they outside?
Mhm.
And is there a sermon? What's the procedure?
Yeah, so I like to explain it. It's usually about 30 minutes long. It has most of the components of a normal church service, just a little bit shortened. So we train all of our team members to give a devotional style message, so they each have a chance to do that. A lot of what we ask them to do is just go through their week and see how God is moving, or maybe what he's telling them. I'm sure you guys have all experienced when you're in a beautiful place, God's creation. I mean, his power and his love is just so evident. So it's a really unique opportunity for people to engage with creation in a way that they might not normally in their day-to-day lives. There's typically song, a time of offering, prayer. So most of the common components of a worship service, just in an outdoor setting in a national park.
Yeah, it's nice.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Good
So,
information.
thank
Good
you.
information.
Thank you. So these are some of the people that I would have never met if I hadn't worked in the Smoky Mountains. A lot of workers who work in the tourism industry in the national parks are from other countries. So they come in on J1 visas, typically for 3 to 4 months. It's kind of a cultural exchange program. A lot of them are students. So they're there to learn about what it's like to live in America, but also to make a lot of money and take it to their home countries where it's worth a lot more than what they would be able to earn in their home countries. So on the left, these are two of my friends from the Dominican Republic. They were zipline guides with me. And something about these students that I interacted with is they were just so loving and wanted to share their culture with us. They would cook us meals and teach us dances from their home countries. The picture on the right, so we actually lived in a student lodge, and my team and I, we were the only Americans living in this lodge. So everyone else was from other countries like the Dominican Republic, Turkey, Colombia, Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia. And you know, as a white person in America, I've never been in the minority like that. So it was such a cool experience, and just hearing their stories and where they came from and how like grateful they were despite some of the hard things they had been through was super powerful. So I got to meet people that I never would have met otherwise.
That's fun.
How was the language barrier, or was there one?
So a lot of them are taught English in school. There's definitely a range. Some students are more proficient in English than others. I actually had a minor in Spanish in school, so I got to practice some of my Spanish, and they would teach me things. But a lot of them are pretty proficient in English.
Muy bien.
Has there been any effect on the visas for these people coming from other
Yeah,
countries?
those cut back.
So it's interesting, we didn't notice a huge cutback this summer, but I know a lot of those policies had just gone into effect. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts these tourism companies. These tourism companies rely on these international students. They don't have enough Americans to work in the national parks. These international workers, this is personal experience, are usually a lot harder working than some of the Americans. I always preferred working with the internationals because I knew that they would do a good job and they wanted to be there. Whereas Americans' work ethic was a little iffy. So they're great workers, and these companies in the national parks rely on them. So if we do see a decrease, that's going to be really interesting to see.
I think the ski areas do too, don't they,
Yes.
Abby? Because a lot of kids come over, and when you go in the restaurants there, they've got their sign, their
Their
name
country.
tag that says I'm from Ecuador or something.
Peru.
Peru, yeah, a lot from South America.
Yeah, Copper Mountain has a lot of.
Copper has a lot of them.
Teaching.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Eastern Europeans as well.
Mhm, yeah.
Yeah, all the resorts.
Yeah, all the resorts.
Super important part of just the tourism industry in general and outdoor tourism.
And how did a lot of the young people get connected to know even the opportunities?
Yeah, how do they get in that pipeline?
Yeah,
Get in the pipeline of just working in a national park.
yeah.
So there's visa agencies that these national park companies work with. So they talk to the agency and they say, we would like 100 students. And then students in the other countries work with the agency, and the agency places them in the parks. They have usually a sponsor. They work with them to make sure they have transportation to get to the park, transitioning, all of those things.
Where'd you work in Grand Canyon National Park?
Yes,
Abby?
no, I couldn't get enough. So I graduated in May of 2024. I wasn't ready for a real job. So I went to the Grand Canyon with the same ministry. Again, that's my ministry team on the left. And this time I worked in a restaurant on the rim of the Grand Canyon called the Harvey House Cafe. So I started out as a host, and then I actually was promoted to a busser, which actually was a promotion because I did make tips, which was nice, a nice boost. So I don't know if any of you have worked in the restaurant industry. It's a rough place. Lots of, especially within the national parks, lots of people quitting, lots of new people coming in. The culture is a little rough. So I felt really honored to be there to minister to those people and to make them feel loved and to try to be an encouraging presence in that community, because there's a lot of complaining, there's a lot of people not getting along, there's a lot of people getting fired, there's a lot going on. So to be there and to be a more a presence that isn't going to just up and quit their job and is going to be more positive and isn't going to talk badly about people, that's kind of a rare thing there. So me and my team, we worked in different parts of the national parks. Is there a question back there? Yeah.
Where do you live and eat when you're?
Great question. So I actually lived on the rim of the Grand Canyon in employee housing. I think I paid about $40 a week to live there. Dorm style. In larger national parks, there's usually an employee dining room where employees can go and get meals. It does depend on the national park, but that's the most common. Employee housing, usually dorm style. So you really are immersed in that community and that's where you're living. There's not usually major towns close by. So that national park community, that is your community. You can go to the next slide. So this is actually a picture of the team leading a worship service on the rim of the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
So you can imagine how powerful a service like that is, because you're worshiping Jesus while staring at his beautiful creation. So super cool experience. We actually led a lot of worship services in the Grand Canyon because there were so many tourists there who wanted to attend them. So at one point we were doing services on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and Sunday evening with the sun setting in the back, every service. And we each had an opportunity to give a devotional style message and lead the offering and do all of those different things.
Did you preach 4 times a week?
So we would rotate. So someone was preaching 4 times a week, not just me, thank
You work
goodness.
you work a full day and then you gotta do that.
wow.
So yeah, typically our team members are working 40-hour weeks
Yeah.
and doing ministry in that setting, but also leading worship services.
How many people would typically attend a service like that?
It really depended. Some days we'd have 2 people there. Some days we'd have 10. Some days we'd have 15. So it really just depended on who was in the park, who had seen our advertising,
Yeah.
and who made time to go to a service.
That was one of my questions. How do the people know that you're there and doing this?
Yeah. So a lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of times our team members work at like a hotel front desk and someone might come up to them and say, are there any worship opportunities in the national parks? Oftentimes we're able to work with the concessionaire, the tourism company, to put up signage about the park. Sometimes we can get the National Park Service to put up signs for us, and have them be able to share information about us if someone does ask. To do our actual services, we have to get permits through the National Park Service, just like any other organization would. So that's a little bit on how that works. Social media is pretty big. A lot of times people know about our organization, so when they're going to a national park, they check our website to see if there is a worship service. So they'll go from park to park.
But those are mostly people who, on their own ask questions about it. But there are so many that may be ready for it when they see the beauty that surrounds them and be more wanting something emotional to
I
deal
walked
with.
around the campground.
So then how?
Campground.
I went campsite to
Campground.
campsite, all around the campground, telling people. about
Oh, you
the
did?
services. Yeah.
But
And-
then there are a lot that just come in for the day or a couple
Right.
of days and
Need some
aren't
big,
there in the camp.
big billboards right there.
Yeah.
If we could, we would.
Stay for the service.
And it's interesting how God works through that, because a lot of times, I mean, these services are in public spaces, people are just walking by. So we've had people just walk by and then see a service and then
Back up.
stop and stay for the service, and they had no idea it was happening, but God put them in the right place at the right time and they got to participate in worship with
A
us.
good billboard would be, this is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it. That's a
Love
big
it.
billboard.
At the entrance.
The picture on the right, is an example of one of the community events that we would put on. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but especially in the Grand Canyon, the employees, not necessarily Park Service employees, these are like concessionaire employees, so private tourism company employees. They do a lot of partying and things that aren't great for the national park. And a lot of times, a national park law enforcement ranger will have to come to the party and break things up, and will lose their jobs that way. So it's not ideal for anyone, and our teams try to go in and provide other more positive ways for community, because if partying's the only option for community, people are desperate for community, so that's what they're gonna go do. But if you provide them with other options, like we're gonna have a game night, which is what we did in that other picture. When you give them more options of other things to do that don't revolve around partying, they're likely to at least try them. And they might even stick around and start doing things with us instead of the things that can get them in trouble and unfortunately get them fired. So we would hold game nights, we would bring snacks, we would have coloring. A lot of the people in that picture are from other countries. So they want to learn about the games that we play in America and want to share things with us. Something that happened a lot in the Grand Canyon was they were actually really intentional about allowing the international students to share their culture. So in our employee dining room, some nights they would let the international students cook for us. So maybe it was like Filipino night and they cooked us Filipino food.
Oh, that's great.
So it was a really cool way to let them like think about their home country and like reminisce in that, and also share it with people who hadn't experienced that culture. So again,
Did the park rangers have those fireside chats at night during the week or weekends?
especially in the Grand Canyon because it's such an
They
active
light a
park.
fire and they give an interpretive talk
Mhm,
on the park.
that was pretty common.
And hopefully the fire didn't get out of control.
Yes, when there's not a fire ban, they do a fire.
And there was a big fire last year, Abby. at
On the
Grand
north
Canyon.
rim, yes.
And it
So I was on the south rim, but the north,
destroyed some of the buildings there, didn't it?
yes.
Restaurant or?
The lodge.
Lodge, yeah.
So that's the end of my official presentation. I'd love to take questions if you
We've got
guys.
about 15 minutes left. Frank,
Did you get to hike down to the Phantom Ranch or across the Grand Canyon?
I did a rim to rim hike. So I started at the north rim, went down to Phantom Ranch, which is where the Colorado River is, stayed the night, hiked home. It
Wow.
was about 30 miles.
Wow.
This is probably naive, but do most or a lot of the parks stay open all year, or do they have certain seasons when we stay closed?
Mhm.
I just don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually gonna touch on that. It's honestly better that the government shutdown is happening now because a lot of parks are closed for the winter. So parks in the north, think Glacier, parts of Yellowstone, Mount Rainier. They might not be completely closed down, but a lot of major roads are completely shut down because of the snow and the ice.
Crater Lake.
Crater Lake,
Yes.
yeah. So there are quite a few who do shut down for the winter.
Probably.
To raise money, do you have a club, Friends of the National Park or something like that?
Yeah.
Jim said to raise money, do you have a club to raise money?
So there's actually the National Parks Conservation Association, which is the major nonprofit associated with all of the national parks. So that's a good way to support them.
Are you part of the Department of Agriculture, like the Forest Service, or a different department?
So because I work with a nonprofit, we actually, our ministry itself, we don't receive funding from the government.
I got the
So
Park Service.
the Park Service, I believe, is a part of the Department of the Interior.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right.
So how does your group get money?
So we fundraise. It's nice that we don't get money from the government because when things go awry, we're not hurting too badly because that's not a source of income that we have. But a lot of what we do is fundraising, generous donors, people who care about the ministry and understand the impact that it has on national park communities.
And what do you do in the
tourists.
winter now, when the,
So we actually have a winter season. It's smaller than the summer season, but there are a few parks where winter is their peak season. The Everglades, Death Valley, It's not peak season for Zion, but they're kind of a year-round park, so we send a team to Zion, the Great Smokies. So we either send people to winter parks or year-round parks who need the help.
Big Bend, do they?
Big Bend, yes, we usually send a team to Big
You
Bend.
got the microphone, Bill?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
in Texas.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Is it possible, can we give you a donation today that would go to, you know, the service of the parks or whatever you think is appropriate? Can we do that?
Yeah, so if you wanna donate directly to the National Park Service, I can't take donations for that. That's something you would do online. If you wanted to donate to the ministry, I do have some business cards up here that I'm happy to give out, and you can see our website and learn a little bit more about us. Yeah, I appreciate that.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and probably a lot of you have seen it, there's my wife and I used to do a lot of travel logs when we were watching movies at night. And there's one that it's called our national park. But it's a new one that Barack Obama sponsored and produced, and not sponsored, produced, and it's really lovely because I just thought it was gonna be all the US ones. But
Right.
it goes into US ones, but it also goes into ones in other parts of the world.
Mhm.
And that's really worth seeing, and you can get it free at your library.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a good segue. I want to give our Zoomers a chance to comment if they'd like to, and I want to ask Susan about Canadian national parks. If you would share, Susan, for a second, are they as popular as in America? Do you know? Do you go to national parks in Canada?
Yeah, so I mean, Canada is so big and there's so much that's unpopulated and people spend a lot of time out in the parks, and we have a lot of visitors from the United States that come up to go fish or, so yeah, I mean, the whole kind of, culture is attuned to being outdoors and enjoying the beauty of the nation. So yeah, people do to go to all the parks all the time.
And are they well supported and funded? Government funds them well?
Yeah, I mean, the further north, the less so, but still there are a lot of tours groups that go up there, you know, to the Yukon and beyond. But yeah, I'd say that there's a financial commitment to the park, sure.
Thank you for sharing.
We actually send a team to one Canadian park,
Oh, which one?
Waterton,
Oh.
which is Glacier, but in
Waterton.
Canada.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
interesting fact.
Very good, yeah, Ann.
I don't know how it is now, but the Canadian side of Glacier is wonderful, and a lot of Americans do not cross the border. And their campgrounds were in such better shape, their outhouses especially. Much more expensive. They also provided your campground fee also included as much wood as you wanted. I was really, you know, we've gone to a lot of campgrounds, but I was really impressed with the Canadian side of Glacier. And don't forget about that if you go to Glacier. A lot of Americans don't. So,
Good point, good point. Yeah, Ann, go ahead.
I would just offer, I don't know if you brought any magazines.
Microphone, if anybody's got it, please.
Oh, I always think I talk loud. I don't.
And not too real, not really.
No, I don't. I know I don't. Well, anyways, I don't know if you brought any national park magazines with you, but I can bring several to the next meeting,
Yeah.
even though it's not part of this group. Okay, thanks, Alice. Yeah, because they're always fundraising in the magazines, but they also, it's a pictorial magazine with several parks identified and lots of information about them. So it's a great way to introduce young people that like to go camping and so forth, to be able to get acquainted with the national parks. And as I said earlier, great subscription. Am I not talking good again?
No, you're doing good. I want you to pass the microphone back.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ann.
Keep looking at me, I think.
You're
One
doing
of the
good.
things that
Thank
we-
you. Yes, go ahead, Ken.
One of the things that we would hope that as these cutbacks begin to affect communities, I can't imagine anybody in Vernal or Moab, Utah that do not appreciate the national parks. So we hope that that particular thing will bring some, I don't want to say pressure. The other thing that we can do as individuals, even though we are from a state that's considered to be progressive,
is that each one of us can write to our senators and our representatives.
True.
And you don't know, you think, oh, it doesn't take much in that particular case to do that. But that's at this particular point, when we're looking at funding,
Mhm.
that's very important. So thank you. Going back up there.
Very good. We've got about 7 minutes left.
I studied forestry at Iowa State, and one of the conflicts between the Park Service and the Forest Service was, in fact, it's been said that the Smokey the Bear campaign was the most successful campaign in history. Only you could prevent forest fires. Well, the West burned back 1910, 100 years ago. And ever since then, the Park Service has put out fires. And by doing so, they've artificially preserved a lot of these older lodgepole stands. And it's become a smorgasbord for these pine bark beetles. So the decision was made in Yellowstone when there was a fire back in 1996, I believe. They decided to let it burn. Unfortunately, there was 100 years of slash, dead timber and leaves built up on the ground of Yellowstone, and it got out of control. It almost burned down Old Faithful Lodge.
Wow.
But the philosophy has changed from fire is bad to fire is a natural part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
We need to let some of these fires burn. And of course, they try to do it in a responsible way, like in the winter time or when there isn't, things aren't so dry. But that's been a conflict, is when and when not to allow fires to burn in the parks and the forest. Wow.
Issue. Yeah. Yeah, send it on back. Before we let Abby go, I want to ask what Abby wants to do with the rest of her life in parks. And you're so articulate, Abby. Do you want to be a pastor also, since you're interested in that?
I've thought about a lot of things. I've thought about maybe in a few years going to seminary. Before I worked for the national office, I actually wanted to be an interpretive park ranger. Looking back, I think I was lucky that didn't work out, because with the government cuts, my job might have gotten taken away from me before I even started. So I'd love to be a park ranger one day. I'd love to continue working with this organization. I love that I get to travel to national parks for work and teach people how to do ministry in that context. And I love where I am right now. So we'll see where God takes me.
You're good at marketing.
Very articulate.
Passionate about it.
Go ahead, Bill.
I apologize for speaking so many times, but one thing has occurred to me. When we go to any national park or it's actually, depending on where you are and what you do, it'd be a very economical vacation, but also you have a great time. But when we tell our friends or where we've been and what we're doing, I think it's a good opportunity through email or, whatever, to say, this is a way you can really help America. And this place was great. And it also has, if it's appropriate, religious services or, things like that. I think, we sometimes forget that, but I can put it in the mind of a lot of people we know.
Right.
Sorry, I can't, we're talking.
Very good. Joy.
How does an area become a national park?
Great question.
Congress.
Act of Congress, usually they're protected. So we've had some places that are national monuments and then become a national park,
Joshua Tree.
like Joshua Tree. So usually they've already been protected. The newest national park is actually New River Gorge in Virginia. That was actually pretty recent. So there's still a chance that we might get another one in our future.
Very good.
With your job, could you tell us a little bit how that goes? You recruit people for the Christian ministry in national parks specifically?
So I actually recruit people at a lot of Christian colleges. For our summer program, our program's open to anyone over 18, but the majority of our team members in the summer are college kids because they have summers off and they're looking to do something fun and something that they might not normally get to do. So I recruit a lot at Christian colleges and universities. We're trying to spread the word to more churches.
You going to Colorado Christian already?
Not yet, but that's on the list.
Frank.
Are you associated with YMCA and YWCA?
So we actually send teams to the YMCA of the Rockies. So we have a team in the Estes Park location and we send a winter team to the Snow Mountain Ranch location. So we're not affiliated, so to speak, but we do have a strong relationship with the YMCA of the Rockies.
Very good.
Yeah. Good. Has anybody got a favorite national park or an unusual story that you want to share? Yeah, go ahead. Use the microphone.
Okay, so, you were talking about Glacier National Park, so I went on this back roads trip, to Glacier, and we stayed at the Prince of Wales Hotel in Canada, and it was right across the road from the ranger station. So one day it was like free time, everybody got to do what they want, so I started hiking up this trail, it was packed, there was a ton of people there. And all of a sudden I turned around, like where that chair is, there was a bear just sitting in carries, right? So I turned around and, as people are coming up the trail, I said, oh, there's a bear there. So then you see a group of young guys, and they're like, where? And they're just running up and down. But unfortunately, there was a fire shortly after I visited Glacier, and the ranger station burnt down to the ground. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
I have a favorite story I would share.
Okay, go ahead and then Jane, and then we gotta close. Go ahead, Keith.
We were in Yellowstone. We were in Yellowstone National Park. And we were sitting there waiting for Old Faithful to spout up. And the interpreter had given the story of that between 30 minutes and 65 minutes or something like that. But it's Old Faithful. It does what it's supposed to do. Well, as luck would be, it was one of the longer intervals between eruptions. And a gentleman who was sitting on the front log said, I'm 85 years old. I don't have all day. Things do come to those who wait. And it was right on the upper limits of their time frame. Sure enough, Old Faithful did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I think our national parks have always done exactly what they're supposed to do.
Good story.
I think seeing the sunrise at Acadia National Park is gorgeous.
That's in
And,
Maine, northern
yeah,
Maine.
and it's such a different national park because you've got the ocean, you've got the mountains and everything. We've been to 44 of the national parks.
Wow.
We like to fly in, rent a car and travel around and see them. That's one way to see the United States.
That's great, Jane. You should write a book. Okay, we're about out of time. I want to give Linda the last word here.
Talking about spiritual experiences in the parks, I was staying in the winter time by Old Faithful in one of the cabins. And we went out on a moonlit night. There was nobody around but like two people, and Old Faithful did its thing. I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible.
Wow.
And
It doesn't stop at night. It goes.
we don't turn it all down. It's not a cloud.
Switch. Shut it off.
The government shut down?
Can we drive to the south? Thank you.
This has been, go ahead, Jane.
Just going to ask, isn't the national park there on the big island of Hawaii? Yes. Where all has been happening for like 33 sessions, they say, of the spoutings. That has been wonderful to see. I was there, or we were there, I should say, about just 2 or 3 months before that happened. We just missed it, is what we think, because we never seen that, but I did see it on TV.
Very interesting. Well, we have to close. We want to thank Abby for her time today. We learned a lot and it was fun talking to you, and want to thank you all for giving an offering
Thank you so
today
much.
for Abby. So
Appreciate it.
you bet.
How did you
Okay.
find her, Steve?
One of the church members here used to go to Abby's church in Florida. So Fran
Good.
was a connection here. So we're glad Abby was living here
Thanks for
locally.
having me. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thanks, hope to see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
My best.
Perfect, Abby, thank you.